A neon sign flickers over an empty highway diner at 2 in the morning. It's Marv, working the graveyard shift again. Poured coffee for a billionaire disguised in a faded coat, and still couldn't clock who was. Inside, an arrogant regular screams at a quiet elderly man sitting alone. One young waitress steps between them, risking her paycheck to stop the abuse. She had no idea that silent customer owned every single brick of this restaurant chain. Rain streams down the glass of the Starlight Diner, isolated on Route 9. The clock on the wall ticks past 2 a.m., heavy and relentless. Elena wipes down the stainless steel counter for the 5th time tonight. Her feet ache inside worn black boots, but resting isn't an option. Double shifts have become her normal routine for the last 6 months. Every extra hour means another installment paid on her sister's hospital debt. In her apron pocket lies an unpaid invoice stamped with urgent red ink. Sophia needs specialized therapy, and the bills arrive faster than tips. Elena never complains to her co-workers. She just takes the extra hours. The graveyard shift pays a tiny night differential that keeps them afloat. If you've ever worked night shifts to protect someone you love, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Manager Marcus sits in the back office, watching security monitors lazily. He cuts staff hours regularly to inflate his own monthly management bonus. Marcus treats the line cooks and waitresses like disposable machinery. Elena knows one slip up under Marcus could mean immediate termination. She double-checks every salt shaker and napkin dispenser meticulously. The kitchen bell dings, signaling a fresh order of greasy hash browns. The cook hands over the plate without speaking a single word. It's a quiet night, the kind where small troubles usually explode out of nowhere. Elena takes a deep breath and steps out into the main dining room. Outside, headlights slice through the heavy highway fog toward the parking lot. A luxury sports car engine rumbles to a stop right near the entrance. The front doorbell chimes aggressively as the late arrival steps inside. Elena greets him with her standard polite smile, ready for the shift's end. Chad steps into the diner, wearing a tailored Italian jacket and a sneer. He's a high-level tech executive who treats service workers like servants. Chad comes in 3 times a week just to assert dominance over staff. He slides into the central booth and immediately snaps his fingers loudly. Elena approaches holding a fresh pot of dark roast coffee. Chad inspects his silver fork, as if searching for microscopic bacteria. He throws the utensil onto the table with a loud, ringing clatter. "This silver is spotted. Get me a clean one right now," he barks. Elena apologizes calmly and immediately replaces the entire silverware roll. Chad doesn't even look up as he orders an expensive off-menu item. He expects instant perfection, despite paying basic diner prices. Between us, every server has encountered someone who thinks money buys manners. If you've ever dealt with an entitled customer, drop a like on this video right now. Chad loudly complains that the temperature inside the diner is too cold. He berates Elena for the kitchen's slow preparation time on his steak. Elena maintains her professional demeanor, refusing to take his bait. Marcus watches from the hallway, nodding in agreement with Chad's complaints. The manager cares only about keeping wealthy regulars satisfied at all costs. Chad demands fresh, hot coffee, claiming his current cup has gone cold. Elena turns back to the brewing station to fetch a steaming pot. Just as she returns, the diner's front entrance door opens once again. A cold gust of wind sweeps inside, rustling paper placemats on the tables. An elderly man walks quietly through the front door, pulling his jacket tight. His boots are scuffed and worn, showing long miles of hard use. A simple wool cap covers his silver hair against the damp night chill. He doesn't command attention. He looks like any weary traveler on Route 9. Marcus glances at the newcomer from his counter and frowns in disdain. To Marcus, this stranger looks like someone who won't leave a decent tip. The manager ignores the old man, letting him stand near the entrance. Elena notices the delay immediately and steps out from behind the counter. "Good evening, sir. Sit anywhere you like," she offers warmly. The stranger chooses a modest corner booth, far away from the main kitchen noise. He slides into the seat with a quiet sigh of relief from aching joints. Elena brings him a glass of ice water and a laminated dinner menu. "Just black coffee for now. Thank you, young lady," he says softly. Notice how real respect doesn't depend on how expensive your clothes are. The stranger takes the cup with both hands, warming his fingers against the porcelain. His eyes quietly observe the restaurant's details: the cleanliness, the atmosphere, the staff. He watches how Elena treats every person with equal kindness and speed. Meanwhile, Chad snaps his fingers again, demanding more warm bread rolls. Chad looks over at the old man's corner with visible annoyance. He mutters loud complaints about the diner letting in vagrants at night. The stranger ignores Chad's comments completely, taking another slow sip of coffee. Elena brings a warm basket of rolls to Chad's booth to keep the peace. Chad shoves the basket aside, getting up to head toward the restroom corridor. He intentionally walks past the stranger's table with aggressive speed. A sudden collision is about to shatter the quiet graveyard shift completely. Chad shoved his chair back with a harsh scrape, oblivious to the man passing behind him. In a fraction of a second, momentum did what malice usually takes time to accomplish. Dark, scalding coffee splashed outward, soaking straight into the old man's worn jacket. The elderly customer winced slightly, taking a quiet step back to avoid the dripping mess. Instead of checking if the senior was burned, Chad leapt up with instant indignation. "Look at what you did to my custom-tailored sleeve," Chad snapped, voice echoing across the room. The old stranger remained perfectly calm, wiping a droplet from his cuff with a calm paper napkin. "Excuse me, sir," the elder replied softly, "but you backed directly into my path while I was walking." That calm response only inflamed Chad's unchecked sense of absolute entitlement. "You walked behind me on purpose. Do you have any idea how much this jacket costs?" Chad slammed a fist onto the laminate table, making the surrounding glass salt shakers rattle. Other late-night patrons turned their heads, suddenly frozen in uncomfortable silence. "You owe me an apology and $500 right now for dry cleaning." The old stranger glanced at his own stained sleeve, then back at the furious young executive. "I don't carry that kind of cash, son," and the accident was clearly mutual. "Son? Don't call me son. You look like a homeless man who wandered in from the highway." Chad grabbed a glass water tumbler and gestured violently, threatening to splash him back. Have you ever seen someone cause a disaster and then act like they own the place? Hit that like button right now if you hate seeing bullies push good people around. The old man didn't flinch, standing his ground with steady, unwavering eyes. Chad stepped closer, towering over the elder in a deliberate show of intimidation. "Apologize on your knees, or I'll make sure you get thrown out into the rain right now." The elder simply folded his arms, entirely unbothered by the empty threats. Chad raised his voice higher, demanding the staff step in and take his side instantly. The atmosphere in the Starlight Diner was about to reach a boiling point, and that was the precise second Elena decided she had tolerated enough. Elena dropped her order pad onto the counter and marched straight down the center aisle. She planted herself firmly right between Chad and the quiet, elderly customer. "That is enough," Elena declared, her voice ringing clear over the diner background hum. Chad stared at her in disbelief, startled that a simple waitress dared to interrupt him. "Step aside, girl. This old bum just ruined my designer suit jacket." "I saw the whole thing, sir," Elena countered without backing down an inch. "You shoved your booth chair out without looking while he was walking past. If anyone owes an apology here, it's you for intimidating a customer who did nothing wrong." Chad's face turned bright red as he leaned in close to her face. "Do you know who my father is? He owns the commercial tech firm down the boulevard. I can buy this entire diner and have you sweeping streets by tomorrow morning." "I don't care who your father is," Elena replied, her eyes calm and unwavering. "In this diner, money doesn't buy you the right to treat human beings like dirt." The old stranger watched Elena carefully, taking note of her name badge and steady tone. He noticed how she put her own livelihood on the line just to defend a stranger. Chad gestured wildly toward the kitchen door, shouting for the diner manager. "Marcus, get your pathetic excuse for a waitress out here right now." Elena knew taking this stand could mean losing the job keeping her sister supported. Yet she didn't step back, refusing to let an arrogant bully crush a defenseless man. If you're enjoying Elena standing up to arrogance, subscribe to the channel right now. The old man stepped forward slightly, touching Elena's shoulder gently. "Thank you, young lady," he whispered quietly, "but please don't endanger yourself for me." "It's not just for you, sir," she murmured back. "It's about what's right." Chad pulled out his phone, threatening to call corporate headquarters immediately. "I'll have this place shut down. You'll all be on the curb by midnight." Heavy footsteps approached rapidly from the back hallway, breaking the standoff. Manager Marcus emerged, looking nervous, angry, and ready to appease his highest spender. Elena braced herself for what was about to happen next. Marcus pushed past Elena without even looking at her, extending a hand to Chad. "Mr. Chad, I am so deeply sorry," Marcus gushed, bowing slightly in desperation. "Please tell me what happened so I can fix this mistake immediately." Chad pointed a sharp finger right at Elena and the old man. "Your employee insulted me after this homeless man spilled hot coffee on my suit. She practically accused me of lying in front of the entire dining room." Marcus's face darkened instantly as he rounded on Elena with venom in his voice. "Is this true, Elena? Did you talk back to one of our VIP regulars?" "I told the truth, Marcus," she said quietly. "He was harassing an elderly customer." "I don't care about your version of the truth," Marcus barked, cutting her off cold. "Our job is to serve our paying customers, not play moral hero during shift hours." He turned to the quiet elderly man and pointed directly toward the glass exit doors. "And you, sir, need to leave right now before I call the highway patrol for trespassing." The old stranger didn't argue, simply looking at Marcus with deep, disappointed pity. Marcus wasn't finished. He grabbed a cleaning rag and threw it at Elena's feet. "Get down on your hands and knees and clean Mr. Chad's boots right now. If you refuse, you are fired effective this very second without your final paycheck." A heavy silence fell over the diner as everyone waited for Elena's answer. Chad smirked triumphantly, crossing his arms and waiting for her humiliation. Elena looked down at the rag, thinking of her sister's hospital bills. She knew that swallowing her pride would save her income, but cost her dignity. Slowly, she looked up into Marcus's eyes and left the rag untouched on the ground. "I will clean the floor, Marcus, but I will never bow down to abuse for anyone." Marcus turned red with rage, pulling out his keys to revoke her locker access. "Then you're done. Hand over your apron and get out before I call security." Unbeknownst to Marcus, the old man was recording every single word in his memory. He didn't flinch or yell back at Marcus's harsh threats. Instead, his eyes focused entirely on Elena's worn name badge. He took in her quiet grace despite the humiliating moment. Elena dropped to her knees to clean the hot spill without a word. Her hands trembled slightly, but her composure never broke. Chad smirked, taking a slow sip from his expensive mug. He thought money bought total immunity from basic decency. Marcus leaned over, whispering another warning into Elena's ear. He reminded her how easily she could be replaced by tomorrow. Yet Elena kept her head high, focusing on her duty. The old stranger reached slowly into his inner coat pocket. He pulled out a small leather-bound notebook and a pen. With precise strokes, he jotted down 2 specific names. Marcus's full name from his desk plaque, and Elena's. Chad paid no attention, busily typing on his gold smartphone. He felt completely victorious after crushing a humble worker. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you hate bullies getting away with it. The quiet elder closed his notebook with a soft thud. He took one last look around the aging highway diner. Every grease stain and flickering neon sign told him a story. It was clear this branch had drifted far from its original mission. He adjusted his collar and prepared to depart quietly. Nobody in that room knew a storm was about to hit. The stage was set for a reckoning no one saw coming. While Marcus escorted Chad toward the front door with fake smiles, the elderly man quietly slipped away from his booth. Elena finished cleaning and returned to wipe the corner table. She expected to find an empty glass and 0 tip. Instead, beneath a ceramic saucer, lay a neatly folded paper napkin. Underneath it was a crisp bill folded in 4. When she unfolded the note, short handwritten lines appeared. Integrity is rare. Hold your head high, Elena." Her eyes welled up with unexpected tears of gratitude. Then she unfolded the banknote hidden beneath the paper. It wasn't a single bill, but a stack of $100 notes. Enough money to cover her sister's prescription bills for months. Elena rushed to the front window to look outside. The old man was already merging onto the foggy highway. She clutched the note to her chest, overwhelmed with relief. Marcus stormed back in, noticing the glowing look on her face. He immediately demanded to inspect whatever was in her hands. Elena quickly slipped the money into her apron pocket. Marcus sneered, warning her that her shift wasn't over yet. He promised to cut her hours starting next week. Little did he know, he wouldn't be managing this branch next week. The old man's kindness had refueled Elena's fighting spirit. She knew she could endure whatever Marcus threw at her, because truth and fairness always find a way to surface. She tucked the napkin note into her locker like a talisman. By the next morning, rumors spread like wildfire among staff. Corporate headquarters was sending an undercover auditor to inspect. Marcus was frantic, barking orders to polish every surface. He wanted the diner looking pristine for corporate eyes. He warned staff that anyone failing inspection would be fired. Elena quietly polished silverware without joining the panic. She always treated every customer with equal respect anyway. Marcus kept checking his watch, expecting a suit to walk in. He assumed corporate inspectors only wore expensive suits. He had no idea the real inspection had already happened yesterday. Actually, I covered a similar secret boss story here on the channel. Check it out. Marcus spent hours rehearsing fake pleasantries in his office mirror. He planned to take full credit for Elena's high service metrics, while hiding his own track record of verbal abuse. If you've ever had a toxic boss like Marcus, comment "justice" below. Around noon, the diner began filling up with lunch regulars. Elena managed 5 booths single-handedly with calm efficiency. Marcus stood by the register, doing nothing but looking important. He believed his position protected him from any consequences. Suddenly, a shadow fell across the diner's front entrance. A sleek black vehicle pulled into the VIP parking spot. Marcus stood up straight, smoothing his tie in anticipation. He thought his big moment to shine had finally arrived. He was about to get a lesson in humility he'd never forget. The following morning, Chad returned to the diner, but he wasn't alone. Beside him walked his father, Richard Sterling, a ruthless corporate executive. Richard owned several franchises in the regional hospitality group. He carried the kind of influence that made restaurant managers tremble. Marcus spotted them instantly and hurried over with a nervous smile. He greeted Richard like royalty, offering the best booth near the window. Chad smirked, crossing his arms as he pointed directly at Elena. He told his father that she had insulted him and created a public scene. Richard looked over at Elena, his expression cold and unreadable. Elena was wiping down a nearby counter, keeping her composure. She knew her job hung by a thread, yet she refused to cower. Marcus called Elena over to the booth with a sharp snap of his fingers. The entire room fell quiet as customers sensed the impending confrontation. Richard demanded an immediate public apology for his son's embarrassment. He threatened to cancel all corporate catering contracts if she stayed. Marcus trembled at the thought of losing thousands in monthly revenue. He ordered Elena to hand over her apron and leave the premises immediately. Elena calmly explained that she only defended a customer who was mistreated. Richard scoffed, calling her personal moral standards irrelevant to business. Chad grinned triumphantly, enjoying every second of her humiliation. Other staff members looked away, afraid to speak up and risk their jobs. Elena slowly untied her apron, preparing to leave her dignity intact. She thought about her sister's medical bills and felt a heavy knot in her chest. If you've ever stood up for what's right despite the personal cost, comment respect. Just as Marcus stepped forward to take her badge, tires screeched outside. Everyone turned their heads toward the parking lot in sudden curiosity. Something big was arriving, and it would change everything in seconds. A rare sight on this humble highway stretch was pulling into view. A sleek, pitch-black luxury limousine pulled up right outside the glass doors. The vehicle glistened under the sun, instantly drawing every gaze. Marcus frowned, wondering if a high-profile guest had lost their way. Richard Sterling recognized the car's custom emblem immediately. His face went pale, realizing whose personal flagship car it was. It belonged to the global holding company that owned the diner chain. A uniformed driver stepped out and quickly walked to open the rear door. Inside the diner, silence settled like a heavy blanket over the tables. Chad whispered to his father, asking why he suddenly looked terrified. Richard told him to shut his mouth and stand up straight. 2 corporate security guards stepped out first, checking the perimeter. Then, a polished Italian leather shoe touched the asphalt pavement. A distinguished man in a custom navy suit emerged from the rear seat. He adjusted his silver cufflinks with calm, effortless authority. Marcus rushed toward the doorway, smoothing his apron anxiously. He expected an executive inspection team, not the founder himself. Elena watched from the counter, holding her folded uniform apron. She felt out of place amidst the sudden influx of high corporate power. The glass door pushed open, ringing the tiny brass bell above. The man walked in with steady steps, looking around the humble dining room. His eyes scanned the booths, searching for something specific. Marcus bowed slightly, extending his hand for a formal greeting. The executive ignored the gesture, walking right past him. He stopped directly in front of the table where Richard and Chad sat. Richard immediately stood up, extending his utmost respect. The arrival of this billionaire would unmask every lie in the room. The man in the bespoke suit turned around to face the entire diner. As the sunlight hit his face, Elena gasped in utter disbelief. Under the crisp hair and polished look was the elderly man from yesterday. The stranger in faded boots was actually Arthur Vance, sole owner of the chain. He regularly traveled undercover to test the heart of his frontline branches. Marcus stood frozen, his face losing all color in an instant. He remembered shouting at the old man and forcing him to leave. Chad looked between his father and Arthur, completely bewildered. Arthur walked past Richard without a word and approached Elena. He smiled warmly, thanking her for defending an old stranger's dignity. He took out the paper napkin she had signed and held it up. He said true leadership is defined by how we treat those who can offer nothing. Then he turned his gaze toward Marcus, his voice growing cold. He informed Marcus that his employment was terminated effective immediately. Cruelty and arrogance had no place in his hospitality empire. Next, Arthur addressed Richard Sterling and his arrogant son. He announced all franchise contracts with Sterling Group were revoked. Richard gasped, begging for a second chance to save his business empire. Arthur raised a hand, refusing to hear another empty excuse. Chad stood humiliated, realizing his entitlement had ruined his family. Arthur turned back to Elena with a respectful nod. He offered her the role of regional operations director for the entire district. She would oversee staff training and ensure every customer was treated fairly. Her salary would cover all her sister's medical needs and secure their future. Elena accepted with tears of gratitude, standing tall before everyone. Justice had been served. Proving kindness is the ultimate currency. Arthur turned his cold gaze toward Marcus, the diner manager who stood frozen in utter shock. The room fell dead silent as Arthur produced an official corporate file from his inner jacket pocket. "You considered this humble girl disposable," Arthur said, his voice ringing with absolute authority. Marcus opened his mouth to stammer an apology, but Arthur cut him off with a single raised hand. "Your employment with this hospitality group is terminated effective immediately, without severance." Marcus gasped as security personnel stepped forward to escort him right off the diner property. Then Arthur turned his eyes to Chad, who was sweating nervously in his expensive tailored coat. Chad's father stepped up, offering an eager handshake to save face for his tech firm. "Mr. Vance, surely we can resolve this tiny misunderstanding quietly," the executive pleaded. Arthur ignored the hand completely, pulling up the master contract ledger on his tablet. "Your firm's commercial supply contract with our global chain is officially canceled." Chad watched in horror as his father turned pale, realizing his son's pride just cost them millions. "Get out of my diner," Arthur stated calmly. watching both men scramble out the door. The remaining staff and customers burst into quiet, relieved applause across the dining room. Arthur walked gently toward Elena, who stood leaning against the stainless steel counter. Elena, you defended a defenseless old man when no one else would risk their paycheck. You showed integrity when power tried to crush you, Arthur said, smiling warmly. Starting today, I am promoting you to Regional Director of Operations for this entire district. Elena gasped, her hands trembling as she thought of her sister's medical bills finally paid. A full executive salary, complete health coverage, and a corporate housing stipend. I don't know what to say, Mr. Vance. Thank you, Elena whispered, tears forming in her eyes. Don't thank me, child. You earned this by simply keeping your heart pure in a cold world. If you've ever stood up for someone when it cost you everything, comment respect right now. Elena untied her checkered apron, ready to step into her new life of dignity and purpose. The old diner would never be the same, but justice had finally claimed its rightful throne. Arthur handed her the key card to her new regional office overlooking the city center. Elena took a deep breath, looking back one last time at the booth where it all began. She knew her sister's future was secure, and her struggles in the graveyard shift were over. The staff cheered as Elena hugged her fellow kitchen workers goodbye. Marcus watched from the parking lot as his possessions were packed into a single box. Chad sat in his luxury car, staring at his phone as his father cut off his allowance. Greed and arrogance had lost, while quiet dignity proved its true value once again. Arthur Vance stepped back into his limousine, content with a day's honest work. Elena walked out into the crisp morning air, holding her head higher than ever before. Sometimes the poorest person in the room is carrying the richest heart. If you believe kindness always wins in the end, hit that subscribe button right now. It helps us bring you more stories of justice and truth every single week. Never judge a patron by their worn coat or faded boots, because behind simple clothes might be the owner of the entire empire. Elena proved that standing up for what's right is never a mistake. Her story will inspire workers across the country to hold their ground with pride. If you watched all the way to the end, comment loyalty so I know you stayed. I read every single comment from our true graveyard shift crew. What would you have done if you were in Elena's shoes that night? Would you have risked your job to protect a complete stranger? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. And here on my channel, we have another video about a broke waitress defending an abused customer who turned out to be the owner. Make sure to check that out next right here on the channel. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your coffee hot. This is Marv signing off from the Graveyard Shift.